Welcome to the Kolbe Cast, episode 175. Thank you for joining us. Today, Kolbe's Megan Lengyel, a University of Dallas alumna, joins Bonnie and I to welcome University of Dallas President Dr. Jonathan Sanford. Dr. Sanford had joined Kolbe families and graduates early in the year in Atlanta as our commencement speaker. Today, he joins us to talk about the University of Dallas. From its origins to the Rome semester and the many opportunities that UD provides, we're glad that you can join us in our visit to the President's office. We hope that you'll enjoy the show.
Hi there, I'm Bonnie, Kolbe homeschooling mom of 4 lads and lasses, liturgical musician, popcorn, and podcast fanatic.
And this is Stephen, homeschooling father of 5 and director of development for Colby Academy.
Hi, Stephen. What's a good word today?
I'm going with transformative today. Transformative.
All right. Like it. Transformative. Okay.
I don't know if that's actually a word. I might have just made that up, but transformation, transformative, something like that. I guess. Right.
All right. Okay. We are happy to have with us Megan Lengyel, Kolbe's Chief Academic Officer. Hi, Megan. Good to have you back.
It's Bonnie. It's good to see you again.
It's always a joy to have you visiting here with us. Today, our guest is Dr. Jonathan Sanford, the president of University of Dallas. Hi, Dr. Sanford. Thanks for coming to the Kolbe Cast.
My pleasure to join you, Bonnie. Thanks so much for having me.
You're most welcome. It's good to have you here. We have many Kolbe graduates who are now students at University of Dallas or alumni of both institutions. So it's a longstanding friendship and partnership that we're happy to celebrate today and hear more about. Let's get to know you a bit first. Would you tell us about yourself and your background and your own experience as a student coming up through a Catholic post-secondary institution?
Yeah, thank you. And let me just say, I love having Kolbe graduates at the University of Dallas, and they're shining examples of what we are working towards with all of our students at the university. So you guys do a fantastic job with the education that you provide. And I was so privileged to address the graduating class this past, I think it was June, and do that in person. So it's a wonderful institution of which each of you are a part. So my background, this could be very long or very short. I'm from Indiana, South Bend, Indiana, to be precise, originally, and fell in love with the approach that Kolbe takes, classical education, because I went to a 7 through 12 classical education school called Trinity School at Greenlawn, and had many wonderful teachers there. And I went to a Catholic university in order to study basically classical literature. So I was in a Greek and Latin program called Honorum Artis Baccalorum. It was 4 years of reading great literature in Greek and Latin. And I picked up philosophy as a second major along the way and loved it so much that I decided to continue to study philosophy with the only aim in mind of teaching. And I thought, well, it would be great to teach on the college level. Maybe I'll teach on the high school level. I really didn't know. I didn't have aspirations really beyond that, other than being a good husband and father. So my wife and I were actually married after our sophomore year of college, which I know is rather young, and but we had both made our way together through this classical education 7 through 12 school and had known each other for a long time, and had our first child shortly before our senior year, and now have 9 children and 4 grandchildren. And along the way, I rowed in college. I was asked to try out for the basketball team where I went, but thought that would be a lot of bench time for me. It was a D1 school, and really enjoyed rowing, and picked up a lot of odd jobs along the way. I was blessed with a great scholarship, and so was my wife. But once we were married, expenses kept mounting, and I continued to do that. So I painted professionally through high school and college and most of graduate school, eventually having my own company, and did that during breaks and summer times, and I suppose that's a part of my story. But I really fell in love with the classical tradition, and when I was in graduate school, I really worked to wed the love that I had for Aristotle and Plato and the great tragedians and others from the Greek tradition with the Catholic philosophical tradition. I'm a huge admirer of St. John Paul II, and found my way thinking seriously about and studying early phenomenology because of his own work, that is JP2's work with Max Scheler, who was a German phenomenologist. And once I completed my dissertation, which was on Aristotle and Scheler, I taught at Fordham University on a postdoc, and then taught at Franciscan University of Steubenville for 13 years. And along the way, I started different things. I was in a lot of different leadership positions, president of the graduate student philosophy body at where I did my PhD, and then at Franciscan, I was chair of the Department of Philosophy after about 3 years, and kept taking on progressive leadership roles while continuing to teach more or less full time. And I still teach, even in my role as president. And I love the thought of St. Thomas Aquinas, Aristotle, but I teach a wide array of works of philosophy and sometimes literature as well. I'm sorry, I should say that I've been at the University of Dallas now for about a little more than 8 years. So I started as the dean of the undergraduate college, and then was provost, and I've been president for 2 years. And I fell in love with the University of Dallas. I quickly saw was my intellectual home, and the vitality of the faculty and the engagement of the students is what I had been looking for throughout my career. And I'm here to stay. This is a truly unique and distinctive and excellent Catholic liberal arts university.
That says a lot, because you have some fierce weather to contend with, some heat down there. That says
yeah,
a lot.
but September through May is pretty awesome.
Yes, that's true. That is true. That's true. Yes, I'm glad you mentioned speaking to our graduating class of 2023. Your commencement address is in episode 158 of the Kolbe cast, which I will link in our show notes. Well, Megan Lengyel, our Chief Academic Officer, is a UD alumna herself. So Megan, tell us about your time at UD and your graduate studies after that. Tell us all the things relating to that.
Sure. Always hard to know where to begin. I did not want to go to the University of Dallas, and my parents made me apply. They said, you just have to apply to the school. You don't have to go. And then, 6 months into my senior year, I had already committed to another school, and my parents were like, well, you just go visit. Go ahead and visit. I knew some kids that were there from a Catholic camp I had been to in Wisconsin at one point. I grew up in St. Louis. So I went, and I had just the most wonderful time. I was able to understand why my parents wanted me to apply there, and I connected with the kind of students that were there. So I ended up not getting a refund from the previous college I had committed to, but went ahead and decided to go to UD. And I had been given a very good amount of scholarship money, so it made the financial decision easy for me. It was a difficult transition for me because I had gone to a traditional Catholic school, unlike Dr. Sanford, where he had a classical education prior to something like UD. Mine was very traditional. It was a very good all-girls Catholic school, had a very good reputation. And I was prepared well for the workload or the amount of work, if you will, but not the type of work, that deep thinking, the reading, the dense reading that you had to get through. And I'm sitting here at Colby Academy going, oh my gosh, if I had had that in high school, I would have been so much more prepared for a school like UD and gotten even more out of it. And, as you get older, you get wiser, and you really appreciate what you had when you were younger, as far as being at University of Dallas and the experience of going on the Rome semester. So what was interesting about my experience at the University of Dallas is I ended up being a physics major. So we're kind of oddballs there as science majors at UD. But it really formed me in how important the sciences were, even to a classical education institution such as University of Dallas. And the way they approach it was so solid. It was a really, really rigorous science experience for me as an undergraduate. I got into the University of Oklahoma's meteorology program, which is pretty competitive to get into. Ever since Twister came out, there's lots of meteorology majors now. So, but it was very competitive to get into. I did get into that. I also got into a research experience for undergraduates program at OU the summer between my junior and senior year at UD. And that was also very formative for me and just helping me to decide what my career would be. Well, fast forward, I ended up not doing anything with my meteorology degree. I got this job at Colby Academy. And that happened after my husband and I moved to California. And I met him through the meteorology program. And he had a job out in California. This is before you could work remotely. And so I met our executive director at the time, and he offered me a job until I could find something else, he said. Well, then I ended up helping to redo all of Colby Academy's math and science curriculum, basically from the ground up. It was something they were looking to do. They needed somebody who had that background. And so I found myself falling back on that physics degree that I had from UD, and just all the formation that I had there could kind of just get integrated into the curriculum as I, was helping to rewrite it. And then I was there for probably 8-9 years. And then we decided to start this online school. So I found myself taking that piece over. And of course, that's what I do now. And we've been doing that for about 11 years now. So.
Can I highlight 3 things that Megan just said, Bonnie?
Please do.
Yeah. So one is, she was a science major. And I think sometimes when people hear of a liberal education or a liberal arts school or classical education, they're not thinking of the sciences. But in point of fact, the original 7 liberal arts are predominantly science and math-based forms of reasoning. And we require all of our students to be able to think mathematically and scientifically. And our second biggest major is actually biology at the university. And biology and chemistry and physics and a number of other majors that are related to those fields are really exceptionally pursued here. And we have, for instance, one of the highest med school placement rates in the country. Now, we are very strong in the humanities, but humanities and liberal arts are not the same thing. The liberal arts includes the humanities, but definitely needs to include scientific thinking. The second thing that she mentioned that I really want to emphasize is the opportunity to have a research component or an internship or to work with people outside of the university through the collaborations we've built up between our faculty and those other institutions. So one of the reasons we're so successful getting students into PhD programs or right into the corporate world or into medical school or what have you is because our regular faculty are teaching them. It's not research assistants such as you would find at a large institution. We have outstanding faculty working directly with the students, and then they've got a network of faculty outside of the University of Dallas, and we've built up many pathways for students to have exposure to their fields on a broader plane, and that's proven really invaluable. And then the third thing is what she began with. She received a really generous scholarship at the University of Dallas. 98% of our students receive significant financial aid, and our sticker prices is one thing. The actual cost of attendance makes us competitive with most state institutions. When you look at the average cost, which is under $30,000, including room and board, and that's something that I think it's important for parents to bear in mind. Many universities do this, where there's a sticker price, and then there's the average price. So look to the average price, and don't let the sticker price scare you. We've got generous donors who have been building up scholarships, and we participate in a whole host of other opportunities to bring that price into a manageable level. And we do look at the size of one's family. We have a special program this year because they changed the FAFSA, where if you've got another child in college, we're offering a $5,000 scholarship right out of the gate if you're applying, and that other child does not need to be a college student at the University of Dallas. That could be anywhere, and that's a way to get past what I think in some respects is an obstacle to big families applying to college because of the way in which the federal student loan program has shifted. So I think that's important for parents and prospective students to have in mind.
I'm very happy to have that in mind with, just being 2 years away from having our first one in college, and then we'll have several more after that. That is a really a unique scholarship. I haven't heard of that. I've heard of other unique situations from some of our Newman Guide schools where, if you go to a Catholic school, you get room and board, or there's like a baseline scholarship, but that's a very unique approach. Mm-hmm. I like that. I also heard that you all waived the application fee up through November 1st. So if students apply early, then their application fee is waived.
That's right. It's waived if you apply before November 1st, and this is the window. And we do fully participate with the classical learning test. In fact, I would say it's preferred in many respects, although the ACT and the SAT is acceptable as well. But we really want to attract students who've had a classical education. We find that they flourish in particular ways at the University of Dallas, building on the foundation that has already been laid. And as I said before, Kolbe graduates are ideal students for the University of Dallas.
Would you recommend to students who are applying that to optimize as much scholarship opportunity as possible, should they be taking the CLT and the SAT and the ACT? Do you think just the CLT is okay? I'm also kind of asking personally, but I'm interested to know what your opinion is.
That's a strategy I have not reflected on. There's no explicit advantage at the University of Dallas. So if you've done exceptionally well in one of those tests and not another, just submit the one that you've done exceptionally well in. And but we're not going to compare scores from 2 of those tests or 3 of those tests. But give us your best, and that's what we'll work with. And we have a way of thinking about the classical learning test in relation to the ACT and in relation to the SAT. And so just put your one best foot forward. And if you've submitted scores from both, we'll take the highest, and not in any way negatively weigh the lower score.
One thing that Dr. Sanford said that stuck out to me was the difference between an undergraduate program like UD that's small, where you have the professors actually teaching the courses and not graduate students. Mm-hmm. That is a huge thing for undergrads. If you go to a Big Ten school, like where I got my master's degree, I was teaching lab classes. Now, I did get some opportunities at UD to be a lab assistant. I wasn't the primary teacher, but I was in there helping kind of with the labs for some of the physics classes. And that experience really helped me when I went off to grad school, and I was in charge of the whole thing. Mm-hmm. And that's how they kind of fund your master's degree when you're in the sciences anyway, when you're at a big university. But you're also in classes with, your intro English class has like 300 kids in it. And you're just not going to get that at the University of Dallas. You're going to have our small lit trad classes. I can still remember sitting in mine in Braniff Hall, and it had maybe 15 kids.
Yeah, we kept those at 18, and we're so they're intentionally small, and we put a very high premium on students and professors being able to develop mentoring relationships that are significant throughout their lives, and you can't do that in a large lecture hall. And the attention that we give to writing exceptionally well, that work requires a smaller class as well, and that really happens in the literary tradition sequence. You know.
For me, coming from Thomas Aquinas College, I knew of University of Dallas was about the only other Newman Guide school I knew of when I was going to college. But for me, I think of a lot of the Newman Guide schools as these very small, relatively new schools. And so the University of Dallas is very intriguing to me because they are a faithful Catholic organization that's, compared to these other schools, large and much older than most of these schools. So I'm kind of curious how that happened. You know, what's that charism that's being carried on that they're continuing to have these great programs, this small feel, yet a bigger, older school.
Yeah, that's a great question. And the University of Dallas is unique in a number of ways. So we opened our doors in 1956, and the inspiration at that time was really provided by Bishop Gorman, who was the bishop of the Diocese of Dallas. He was a classmate of Archbishop Fulton Sheen when he was at Freiburg. He had a doctorate in history. He was a great scholar. And his vision was to build a great Catholic university, one that had an international reputation. It was by design from the very beginning that we would have a PhD program and a thriving graduate school, which we do have. And as he was thinking about how to do this in a way that could have a big reach and a big impact, he decided that it needed a lay board from the very beginning. So we were never a diocesan school, even though we were founded by the bishop in collaboration with an order of nuns, the School Sisters of Our Lady of Namur. And at that time, there was a Cistercian community who had fled Hungary when their monastery was seized. They were invited by Bishop Gorman to come and serve as some of the earliest faculty members at the University of Dallas. They've had a tremendous influence on the university since its doors opened, and yet they're not providing the actual organizational elements of the university. We're independent. We also have a Dominican priory on campus, and many of those Dominican men were part of our formative years and still are. Our chaplain is a Dominican priest. We have National Dominican sisters now who teach for us, and we're just beginning the work of building a convent for them on campus. That's a relationship that has developed because so many of their community are graduates of the University of Dallas. And when I was dean, that was when Aquinas College was beginning to have some challenges, if you recall that. And I thought there might be some faculty members available, and there were, and I attracted them to the university. They're outstanding teachers. And then Opus Dei is very active in the area. Regnum Christi is very active in the area. There's a traditional Latin Rite parish that several faculty members helped found just up the street. There's a charismatic community in Irving where the University of Dallas is, and other authentic Catholic charisms that are attracted to the vision of the university and has helped the university to maintain its fidelity to the church. But the organizing principle is this vision of what is it to be a great Catholic liberal arts university. St. John Henry Cardinal Newman was an influence from the very beginning, his writings, And when a new core curriculum was developed a couple of years after the founding of the school, there were a couple of faculty members, they were married, who had recently arrived, the Cowans, so Donald and Louise Cowan, and their task was to build an honors college at the University of Dallas. And they spent a year thinking about the best education that they could come up with. And then they thought, why are we providing this just to a segment of the student population? We need an honors college for all of our students. they're animated by that principle that the former president of University of Chicago articulated so well, that the best education for the best student is the best education for every student. So that's been the theme that we've been running with since that core curriculum, initially meant for a honors college, was put together. And we have incredibly committed faculty members who have just held true to that vision and have made sure that administrators played by the rules of the essence and purpose of the university, or else they were gonna raise some disturbance, and alumni who are just committed to this vision of education. So it's a combination of an aspiration to really be great and to really be excellent at every level, which counteracts, it was right around this time that the Land O'Lakes agreement was coming together. If you're familiar with this, there was a group of college presidents who met at Land O'Lakes and decided, we need to water down our fidelity to our Catholic identity so that we can become excellent. The University of Dallas sees its commitment to excellence as an expression of its fidelity to the Catholic identity of the university, drawing upon the resources of the Catholic intellectual tradition. And it shows in terms of what our graduates like Megan do. They're running thriving organizations. They're the top attorneys in major law firms. They're the best surgeons that you can find in major metropolitan areas because they've received this excellent education. And most significantly, they're faithful, responsible citizens who love the church, who are not hiding their light under a bushel basket, but in fact are striving with every ounce of their energy to reclaim culture.
It came up in your introduction, and I was impressed because you said that you teach classes, and it shows, I think, your university's commitment to that mission, because oftentimes a school president can kind of get pushed into donor relations and in administration and lose track of, or lose.
I do a lot of that too.
Yes, I'm sure you do. but that connection,
we're the sort of place where having a president teach is very fitting, and it helps for the faculty to see me in the classroom, and frankly, it helps me remember what all of my other work is about. I went, as I said before, to graduate school because I was so grateful for the education I received, and I thought the only way to properly say thank you for it is to provide, as well as I could, an excellent education to students that I would teach. So I keep that before me even when I'm not teaching, but I love teaching, and it's energizing. Few things are more fulfilling than teaching. Maybe no things.
I think I'd be intimidated maybe as a student to take, I don't know, maybe not. I hear you're out and about on the campus quite a bit. Is that true? Shaking hands with the students?
Oh yeah. I don't try to be intimidating, but I think I can come off as pretty formal. And but I love being with the students, and they seem to like being with me. And I take my suit off and play basketball, intramural basketball with the students, and do other fun things. So I think that's important. It's a place that needs the leader to be amongst its people. So,
and I know at the time when I was at Thomas Aquinas College, it was a much smaller school than what you are now. But that always, I had a couple of classes with the person who was president of the college at the time, and then future presidents and things, and not only gaining from their wisdom. So I guess it wasn't the intimidation factor, but the fact as a student that they would ask about, well, what's dorm life like, how things going, and you get these relationships with. So for me, it felt as a student like the president is concerned about me as a person, my formation and my well-being. And it seemed like it was beneficial for him as well, to be able to hear directly from students and be able to interact with what's actually going on, the work of the school. So,
well, you've had a string of great presidents at Thomas Aquinas College, and it's not just asking and seeming interested. I'm sure they really were interested. I really am interested. I feel a kind of fatherly care for the students. I know I'm not their father, except in the case of one current student and one who just graduated. And I've got some nephews and nieces here, but we don't have a religious community that's providing that sort of paternal dimension. We do have a great chaplain, but as a secular president or a non-religious, it's really important to show what I do have, which is I am a dad and a grandfather, and they appreciate that.
Yeah, right. It's really one of the things that always struck me going off to college. It's suddenly like, boom, you're away from your family for many of them, and without good leaders. So, but I've again heard just wonderful things about the University of Dallas as far as having good mentors and having father-like figures and such that from the faculty and the staff there.
Yeah, and mother-like figures. We've got some great
figures,
faculty, and something that Megan wouldn't have had on campus now. We have a shrine to Our Lady of Guadalupe, which was installed in 2014. And in my first year of presidency, I worked with our bishop to consecrate the whole university to Our Lady of Guadalupe. And so we're under her patronage, and that maternal care is absolutely essential to our identity now.
I have the beautiful prayer card that was passed to me from the alumni director, I think, of that shrine. So, yeah.
Well, that's important. Well, when you encounter someone who doesn't realize that UD is a Catholic institution, how do you like to steer that conversation? How's that tend to go?
Well, I talk about what I was just describing, just the vibrancy of religious life on campus, and explain that we have just within our own Church of the Incarnation, which is our chapel on campus, 2 masses every day, Eucharistic adoration every day, multiple opportunities for confession each week, and really vibrant Catholic life on campus, focused missionaries on campus, and they're focused on students who may not be plugged in already to the rich liturgical life. So the name might lead one to not think that we're a Catholic university, right? University of Dallas.
Yeah, I think you guys are one of 2 schools on the Newman Guide list that doesn't have, a saint's name in it or Mary or something like that. So it's interesting.
Yeah, and maybe it has a certain advantage, right? So Sister Josephine, who's a member of what is it, the Sisters of the Nazarene Family or something, which is here in Texas. I forget the exact name, but she came to the University of Dallas having no idea it was a Catholic university. She was a Baptist and was shocked, stuck it out, entered our RCIA program, and then decided to dedicate her life as a consecrated nun. But we want everyone to know that we're Catholic. The church is sort of hard to see from the road. Every now and then we think, well, how about a crucifix on top of the tower? But that wouldn't really architecturally fit. One thing that's going to help, we're receiving relics, first-class relics of St. Padre Pio next week, and there's going to be thousands of people, I think, who are making their way to campus, who might think, oh, what? I guess this is a Catholic university. They'll know it for sure when they see that. But the moniker that we have, the Catholic University for Independent Thinkers, is important to have that attached to the University of Dallas. And what we mean by being independent thinkers is we want our students to think for themselves, to be strong-minded, rooted in the faith, to be able to argue without quarreling, and to defend what they believe because they've learned how to consider both sides of an argument and how to be dedicated and creative truth seekers. So it's become regular for us to say University of Dallas, the Catholic University for independent thinkers.
I'm glad you spoke to that. I was going to ask you about that. So I'm glad that you brought that up.
We're about 75% Catholic on the undergraduate side, which is pretty dense, but it's not like we're 100% Catholic students. And we've always attracted students who just know that we're an excellent liberal arts university and appreciate the fact that we're faithful to our Catholic identity, and don't in any way hide from that. That's deeply attractive to Jewish students, to non-Catholic Christians who've come here and have shared that they find that attractive. And some of them convert while they're at the
Yeah, I had a couple friends that converted when I was there.
Mm-hmm.
Sister Josephine's story is so interesting. I've heard of some recordings of her sharing that story, of her not realizing when she got there and now where she is now. And that's neat. Yeah. So students who arrive at UD having had a classical education experience already, they recognize that core. What do they have to say about that? And next, I'm going to ask you about sort of the flip side, the skeptics.
Well, they find that their education continues, right? One of the most dispiriting things that I occasionally hear from people who've gone to a classical education high school and then went to a college is, and I know a lot of people like that because my kids go to classical education schools, and it's the end of something, right? They were introduced to this rich conversation, this rich way of pursuing the true, the good, and the beautiful. And by the time they graduate, a really high level of engagement around serious topics in community with others. And then they go to a big state university or some other school that doesn't take seriously the classical foundations of education, and it all comes to an end. And that is so sad. So the students at the University of Dallas, they don't feel like they're going through Groundhog Day again and again and again, like that movie, right? There's something new and fresh. You're not going to read exactly the same literature. And it's the very nature of a classical education that you return to topics that are of perennial concern, build upon the work that you've already done, and do so at a higher level in college. It makes a big difference to be in conversation with fellow freshmen, sophomore, junior, seniors. These are adults now who've got a more serious point of reflection on life. And to reread Plato's Republic in conversation with somebody who has been digging into the Republic for 20 years of her career as your professor, and doing so in conversation with other people who are 18, 19 years old is a very different experience than reading the Republic during your junior year of high school. It just is. But again, the works are not going to all be the same. The introduction to the sciences will be different, and the lab work will be different. And we're an institution that takes the arts very seriously. We have a thriving drama program. About 40% of our undergraduate students, although they're not all drama majors, participate in drama productions. We're one of only 3 Catholic universities that offers the MFA degree, that's like the PhD in studio arts, and we have masters and undergraduate majors in studio arts. So there's a lot of making that goes on within our outstanding facilities here, and thriving music minors. And we're working on having a suitable hall, and then we'll have our major brought online. A lot of students don't want to even minor in music, but there's a lot of music making going on campus. And so it's a place in which the arts are alive. It's a community in which friendships form around a serious concern for the most important topics. And students who've had a classical education in high school, they feel a continuity with what they've already done. And part of what's distinctive about the University of Dallas is we've got this both and approach. So there's a core curriculum and rigorous majors. And those majors really do an outstanding job disciplining the minds of the students and preparing them for the next level of education if they want to go on to graduate or professional studies, or preparing them to step right into the workforce after they graduate. So that both and approach is something that will be unfamiliar to Kolbe graduates as well, and it's a really enriching part of the culture on campus. The last thing I'll say is, I don't know if you guys wrestle with AI questions and chat GBT and what's all this going to do. I am absolutely convinced that those who have received a classical education and really flourished in it, even on the college level, will be the best positioned to navigate a future that will have whole new careers for people who think creatively, who are articulate, who write well, who are rooted in a tradition, who understand what it is to be truly a citizen, who have a sense of their own history. They're the ones who are going to thrive in the future in ways that those who've had a very narrow technical degree are going to be at a real disadvantage.
That's an increasing topic of conversation, becoming more and more a part of life. So I'm glad you brought that up. That's a good point.
Yeah.
Okay, so for skeptics or folks who wonder why students would want to study the classics again after having been through them once as high schoolers, you've touched on this a bit. When you encounter that, I'm sure it's not uncommon that you hear that question, and you've answered it quite well already. But if there's anything else you want to add to that, feel free.
If one thinks that, okay, I've had my classical education, now I'm done, you sort of miss the point, because a classical education is an education that takes a lifetime to grow into, and deepening it and spreading your intellectual and moral wings in new and challenging ways will only enable you to live into that education more deeply.
So your graduate programs, I think my first introduction to the University of Dallas was through a friend of mine. I worked with at a parish. I was the music director. She was the DRE at the time. She had been through UD's graduate program for catechists. And so I think that was the first time I became aware of the school. So what would you like us to know about the graduate programs at UD? And I'm also curious as to whether you end up with very many formerly homeschooling parents as students there once their homeschooling years are behind them.
We actually do have a fair number of graduated homeschooling parents, homeschool alumni parents. I'm not sure how to describe them. One of our fastest growing master's programs is the master's in classical education, and I would suggest that could be of value even for current homeschooling parents. I know it is an enormous load that you bear as a homeschooling parent, but most of the students, maybe even all of the students in that classical education program, which is offered online, are themselves teachers. Most of them at classical education schools. Homeschooling parents are teachers, and they may find it enormously valuable to be in that program. But we also, you mentioned the program in ministry and evangelization, catechetics. So we have an institute called the Newhoff Institute for Ministry and Evangelization, and that offers certificate programs, and we do that remotely. We actually go to Atlanta, we go to Las Vegas, we do a lot of this in the Diocese of Dallas. We go to parishes, and we provide a program in the Catholic biblical tradition. How do you read the Bible as a Catholic? A program in the systematic theology, and then we offer full bore theology master's programs out of our Department of Theology. Many other programs. We have PhD programs, and every now and then we'll have somebody in sort of in the post kids have graduated and have left the home phase of life, even in those PhD programs. So literature is a big major. We offer a master's degree in humanities in general as well, and we offer summer courses and sometimes courses on our campus outside of Rome in that program, and then we have a separate college of business that offers an MBA that's rooted in the Catholic identity of the university and its liberal arts character that you can take fully online or fully on ground, and master's degrees in cybersecurity and even a DBA, a Doctor of Business Administration. And for those who are interested in how do you wed classical education with market relevant business education, there are great opportunities there.
Yeah, with all of my TAC connections, the graduate programs at UD have made a close connection between the schools, because there's just innumerable friends that I have that have after TAC have gone on to just have great experiences in so many different programs there.
I've taught some of those TAC grads and graduate courses here, and they're fantastic. Yeah.
There's been so much growth just in what's available to the students too since I was there. I graduated in 2001.
Mm-hmm.
So, very, very long time ago.
Not that long ago, Megan.
Feels like it. I know one thing that wasn't there when I was an undergrad was the opportunity for a business degree as an undergrad. Of course, the Brandis School of
Management. Yeah.
Management, that's what it was. That was in existence, and it seemed to be utilized by a lot of adults, I would say, in the Dallas area.
Yeah.
It seemed to be like it was very well known amongst some of the businesses there. Could you talk at all about how the business degree works? Because I think there's a lot of students that, like, I've told my own children, like, I'd love for you to major in humanities, but maybe you should also have a second major in business. Do you see a lot of people doing that? Is that good advice?
It is our most popular undergraduate major now.
Wow.
And I have a son who's a sophomore at UD who's considering business as a major, and either that or biochem. He's not sure. He's been doing both. They're very different. Here's what's distinctive, right? Our business majors have the full core, plus they take an additional philosophy and theology course. So the philosophy course is focused on business ethics, and the theology course is on the encyclical tradition, insofar as it relates to the economy and business affairs, right? So we want them to have wrestled with the foundational principles of Catholic social teaching, but they take the same curriculum as all of the other students. So you have the core, and then you have additional core courses just for business majors, and then you've got the business major, and we require all of our business majors to have significant internship experience, and we've built up relationships with corporations where basically they work for a semester and oftentimes get permanent positions with those corporations because of that time spent. So it's been a very successful major, not just because it's attractive to a lot of students, but the placements for graduates from that program are quite remarkable. And all of the business majors are required to take courses in entrepreneurialism. Many of them, as you know, because you're familiar with the alumni community, we've got a lot of very successful entrepreneurs. And so what do you need to know? Now, you don't have to be a business major to take that course or some other courses. You can let's just take 4 or something like that and still be in pretty good shape to explore other things. But it's a major that you can double major in with French or English or what have you quite easily.
Also seems like a very worthy major on its own in the way that you guys have structured it.
Yes,
so.
Yeah, it is. It's not the run of the mill business major that one sometimes thinks of as at some schools, like the major you go to, if you're not really serious about learning. That's not the case at the University of Dallas.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So you've mentioned the Rome experience and the opportunities to study abroad. What's involved in the UD Rome experience?
I was just on our Rome campus last week, and I joined the students for one of their many excursions. This was to the Castelli region of Italy, which is right next to where our campus is. So Castel Gandolfo is part of the Castelli region. We're in between Rome and Castel Gandolfo, so south of Rome, but only about a 25-minute drive to the heart of Rome from campus. And nearly all of our students, usually in their sophomore year, go to Rome for a full semester. And the program is designed to be a sort of the capstone of the core curriculum. We always offer the same courses there, and those courses are relevant to the location. So Western Civilization 1, where you're then able to go and visit the sites that you've studied about in that course, or the Western theological tradition, similar thing. We always take a 10-day trip to Greece. On each of the trips, students are accompanied by faculty, and the faculty provides site lectures. So it's an immersive experience. You're not just wandering about, finding your way into restaurants and looking at things you don't understand. Our faculty provide really rich reflections on the location and connect those locations to what they're learning in the classroom. And then there also are opportunities during that semester for students to travel on their own in groups. We always encourage them to go in groups, small groups, and go explore Paris, go explore Germany, and that includes a spring break where we cut them loose, and they've got numbers they can call if they're in trouble, but we want them to learn how to navigate foreign countries, and that's part of the process of becoming men and women, right? So it often strikes me that we send boys and girls to Rome and they come back men and women because they've had to learn how to navigate cultures in which they don't speak the language, and it's rooted there in Rome, which is, of course, the beating heart of the Catholic Church and Western civilization in so many ways. So it's a the word of the day is transformative. Stephen told us it's a transformative experience for these students.
I can definitely attest to that. My Rome semester was certainly transformative for me, especially in what Dr. Sanford said in terms of really the maturing of the student. You leave kind of this teenager, right? You might be a responsible teenager, but it's different when you go to another country and you have to navigate, the metro system, the bus system. The first day they had us on the bus, taking us into Rome, showing us how to take the metro to get to, the Piazza Navona. And by the second or third time I went, and, we didn't ever really travel by ourselves. We always had somebody with us, but we knew exactly how to get there. We knew how to read a map. Now these days there's the whole, I guess the kids have phones and maybe that helps them a little more, but being able to know exactly where to go, get your map, reading it, there was like a life skill that you really can't learn other than just being immersed into it.
Mm-hmm.
It was great.
So Kolbe Academy has a long relationship with University of Dallas. Several of our faculty members are alumni of the university, and we have many current students who are Kolbe alumni. There's this long-standing friendship, which is taking steps in deepening that relationship here with a partnership recently announced. Megan, would you tell us a bit about the opportunities that are available to Kolbe students to get to know the University of Dallas a bit better?
Sure. And I can actually tie this back to the whole travel thing that we were just talking about. But
Okay.
so I got to accompany 18 Kolbe students to France back in June or late May. And I just had such a wonderful time being around the students, and they just loved being around each other because, of course, they're online students. They're kind of all over the US. And I thought, we ought to create more opportunities for these kids to meet up with each other. And my oldest is a junior, and I've been thinking about how he needs to start visiting colleges. And I told my husband, I'll do the whole, Newman guide circuit. And if you want to take him to stuff we're in Georgia, if you want to take him to some of the state schools around here, that I'll let you do that piece. So that just kind of got my wheels turning. And I thought, I'm going to reach out to UD and see if they're interested in having a Kolbe weekend or something like that. And they were very intrigued by the idea. And of course, since it's the first time, they didn't want to just do one Kolbe weekend and, 3 kids show up, right? So what we decided to do, along with the admissions department at University of Dallas, is to market one of their Odyssey days, particularly to Kolbe students. And assuming that we get enough students there, they'll have, a special table for them so they can all kind of sit together during meals. We may have a special reception for them as well. And so, and just knowing how much the University of Dallas, I think would appeal to Kolbe students, it just seemed like a perfect match. So I'm really excited about that. I believe the date is November 11th.
Whatever the date is, I know it's on my calendar. And I am really looking forward to spending time with the Kolbe students who are visiting, and I will make sure that I know who you are when you come, because I can't wait to meet you.
That sounds neat. To get a chance to meet your current classmates and check out future opportunities. That sounds really neat.
Yeah. And Bonnie, I think you could probably put in the show notes a link to where they can sign up. I can get that link for you.
And I would say that visiting campus is the most important thing you can do to assess different universities, right? So, Megan, you mentioned you came and visited and you fell in love with the university, and that's been the case of a lot of, I would say, most of our students. And it's not because we've got the 100-foot climbing wall. We don't, okay? It's because we're a thriving community of students who take ideas seriously, but who don't take themselves too seriously. There's a lot of playfulness and whimsy to the University of Dallas student culture, and sitting in the classroom and seeing our excellent faculty members and how they engage with the students, and they know them by name and are solicitous for their well-being, and feeling like this is a place where I'm going to find friends, and I'm going to be happy. And in fact, last year, one of these national rankings had our students listed as the number 6 for the happiest students in the United States. Again, I don't know how they arrive at these results, but there's something to that. Our students, just in a natural sense, are balanced and wholesome, and looking for good ways to engage and play, and take their faith very seriously, and yet are detached from an overly somber view of themselves, and they're not fraught with the ideologies that really are attacking so many young people today. It's just not part of the culture here. So that's what I mean by just in this natural sense of being, for the most part, well-balanced young men and women who want to live lives of magnanimity and have a good dose of humility to add to that mix, and they love to play, love to poke fun at each other, love to play music, love to act, and it's a really attractive culture.
There was an article that I stumbled upon sometime over the summer, and I'll have to go look it up, and maybe we can put it in the show notes. But it was describing the relationships you make at college, and how, like, whether they would last or not last. And it actually, the author that wrote it, he did not go to UD himself, but he mentioned that he had friends that went to University of Dallas, and he was astounded by the friendships that he made while he was there.
I would love to see that. I mean, it is one of the most remarkable things I've noticed about our alumni community. I mean, lifelong friendships grown out of college, because, C.S. Lewis points out, friendships form when you have a common object of deep interest. And having that core curriculum is a way to forge that. Having experiences in Rome is a way to forge that. And these are friends for a lifetime that are formed at the University of Dallas. And that becomes important in secondary ways as well, like business partnerships and just having good neighbors. People want to continue to live near each other. And a lot of marriages come out of every graduating class of the University of Dallas, and they're good and holy marriages.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think a lot about that, all those dimensions of the whole person and the impact that the college years have on that formation. Yeah. So yes, in our show notes, we will have a link to the episode that Megan mentioned. It's episode 163, Postcards from France. That was a fun one. Also a link to sign up for the Odyssey Day that we've been discussing, and hopefully the article that you were mentioning as well. So check the show notes for that. As a way of wrapping up our great conversation today, Dr. Sanford, would you have any words of advice or perhaps solidarity for our Kolbe parents as they are contemplating what's ahead for their children?
Well, just principally a word of thanks. Thank you for endeavoring to provide your son, your daughter, with the most excellent of education through Colby Academy. You've striven to put before them treasures of learning. And my wife and I are homeschooling failures. We did it for years and just had a really difficult time. And part of that has to do with just how busy I became, but I have such deep admiration for homeschooling. And Kolbe is wonderful because you're able to have your children connected with so many other children who are going through the same education. It's a really rich network. And as you think about how to continue to provide what's best for your son, your daughter, I just invite you to come and spend some time with us at the University of Dallas. I think you'll find, in many cases, just what you're looking for. And remember what I said near the beginning. Don't let the sticker price prevent you from applying. The average total cost is under $30,000, and even less for many people, and that's including room and board and other fees. And almost every single student at the University of Dallas is a recipient of a really generous scholarship package. So we do everything we can to make college affordable. And remember, there's that $5,000 scholarship for any of you who have another child in college during the time that your prospective son or daughter is checking out the University of Dallas.
Wanted to mention, Dr. Sanford, that there's no such thing as a homeschooling failure.
Right.
That God gives you, just like when the job or whatever doesn't turn out how you planned or how you envisioned it, it's still a gift that time.
That's very kind, Stephen. It's very kind. I can't shirk that sense of, man, with this. Anyways, no, you're right. You're right. And we found really good places for our kids.
Good deal. Well, thank you for that. And for this time you've spent visiting with us, Dr. Sanford. Please check our show notes, listeners. We will have links to what we talked about today, as well as I'm thinking of at least 2 other KolbeCast episodes with Kolbe and UD alumni. So check the show notes for those to hear more about that. And thanks so much for coming to visit with us. It was a real pleasure meeting you today.
But it was great to be with you. Thanks so much for having me on the show.
Subscribe to the KolbeCast on your favorite podcast app so that you don't miss an episode. And let us know how we're doing by leaving a rating or a review. And as always, feel free to email us at podcast@kolbe.org.
Mary our Mother, pray for us. St. Maximilian Kolbe, pray for us. Ad Maiorem Dei Gloriam.